session on ragas and relationships between various ragas. As often mentioned, the beauty of Carnatic music and its unique distinctiveness that you see in world music which is partially true also for Hindustani music, is the beautiful little distinctions which can actually make a world of difference. I have collaborated with musicians from so many different cultures, including Western classical. I even compose for Western classical symphonies and jazz groups. I work with Chinese artists, Brazilians, Middle Eastern, and a host of other systems, probably even with, I've also worked with pop musicians and so many different kinds of artists. But nowhere in the world you will see this sophisticated melodic development that you see in Indian music. And of course, this is not to, unfavorably compare any other system. Each other system has its own other distinctive features which has made it enjoyable and beautiful. I am a fan of so many good systems. But melodic sophistication, melodic completeness in the way in which we approach the subject is something that is brilliantly unique, well-defined, aesthetic, classifiable, communicative, and rationally understandable by the listeners as well. In 90 out of 100 cases, 10% will only prove the rule rather than negate the rule. So, in this context, even about 3 days back in a panel discussion, I touched upon some things briefly, which is one of the things that I mentioned that day is that Western systems in medieval times had some modes. They had different modes like your Karara, Priya, Kalyani, Shankarabharanam, Harikambodhi, some of these fundamental modes were there. But later on, everything got resolved into just the basic major, minor scales. And probably they also have the harmonic minor, which is more like your Keeravani. Otherwise, it's mostly like your Shankarabharanam, which is the major scale for them. So anything now, if I play Kannada, Kadanakutuhala, Arabi, Devagandhari, Janaranjani, Kolahalam, Bangala, whatever I play to their ears, it will only sound like one major scale, one single entity. Whereas for us, it sounds like so many different things. And almost the same thing holds good for jazz and other things, because most of them follow the Western classical patterns when it comes to these things. In Middle Eastern music, of course, you are dealing with a totally different concept of, sometimes their octave itself will have so many minute microtones. Probably there are systems which have like as many as 31 notes or 27 notes and all that per octave, like instead of the 12 or 16 that we deal with, or even the 22 shrutis that we deal with. So this concept of shruti itself is a very, very cultural specific context in some ways. So now when you hear some varieties of Persian music, what you may probably hear notes that we have not even generally seen in our system. So நம்ம காதுக்கு அது வந்து அபஸ்வரமாக கேட்கும். என்ன பாடிட்டு இருக்கார் சார் அப்படின்னு நினைப்போம். ஆனால் அவளுக்கு அது பரம valid notes. Similarly, a lot of the oscillations that we do in our system sound even weird to Hindustani listeners. In fact, Hindustani musicians themselves don't have many of the Carnatic type of oscillation. நம்ம இப்போ வந்து ஒரு எதுக்குள்ள காம்போதியில் இருக்கக்கூடிய ஒரு சரி உஸ்கோ கியா ஐசே கஹते हैं அப்படின்னு கேட்பாவா. ஸோ இதில் வந்து எப்படின்னா so many of these things are so culture specific and system specific. So அதில் வந்து நம்ம within Carnatic அப்படின்னு பார்த்ததுன்னா style specific, Bani specific, every individual artist and style, school, சில ஸ்கூல்ஸில் வந்து சில கமக்கம்ஸை துல்லியமாக பிடிப்பா, சில கமக்கம்ஸ் வந்து சில பேர் வந்து இன்னும் எக்ஸாஜரேட்டடாக காட்டலாம். ஸோ இந்த மாதிரி கைண்ட் ஆஃப் டிஸ்டிங்ஷன்ஸ் ஆல்சோ கம் இன் டு பிளே. ஸோ இப்படி இருக்கச்ச இன்னொரு ரொம்ப important angle which comes into play is many of the ragas have been evolving all the time, just like human beings. So many ragas that you read about in the books today may have very little similarity to what is actually being heard on the stage. And of course there is always the chicken and egg situation, whether somebody wrote it correctly or somebody wrote it hearing what he heard at that time correctly, and whether somebody else came and changed the music afterwards, or the original author did not understand what was being prevailed at that time, or whether whatever the author wrote at that particular time was only specific to that particular region in which he was there. Maybe some other regions handle the same raga differently. All this, so many ifs and buts and speculative things come into play that it's very difficult for anyone to actually, pin down something. Now, that day even I mentioned this, a small example of this popular Tyagaraja composition. Idi samayamura ina kulatilaka idi samayamura. இது வந்து இன்னைக்கு நம்ம பாடக்கூடிய இந்த ராகம் வந்து வாகதீஸ்வரி ஜன்யமா சாயா நாட்டா அப்படின்னு சொல்லி பாடப்பட்டது. I'm sorry, I'm lapsing into Tamil once in a while. How many of you don't understand Tamil? All of you do? Oh, Pranav doesn't. You also don't. Okay, I'll stick to English. So, occasional word I'm sure you'll be able to figure out, okay? So the main thing is, when you are singing this like this, as a Vagadishwari Janyam today, suddenly a good friend of mine shared some manuscripts from the Valajapet school. The manuscript is not manuscript written by themselves, but it's a transcript of the Valajapet manuscript. So there is, it is already, Valajapet manuscript itself is not Tyagaraja's original handwriting, so that there it's already, second and third and then the transcript of that. So you are already talking of so many different hands coming in between. So, but anyway, that raga is totally mentioned as Shweta Ranjani in that. And it is listed more as a Harikambodhi Janyam, which means there is no Shatshruti Rishabham, but only Chatushruti Rishabham. So some of the phrasings are of course same, and the way they have notated the tala and all that is very different. Most of those manuscripts, whether it's Tyagarajas or Uthikadu Venkatakavis and all this, you don't see them mentioning Arohanam, Arohanam for most of these ragams. Arohanam, Arohanam probably belonged only to treatises. Practical musicians and composers never bothered to write down Arohanam, Arohanam. They took it for granted that you were supposed to know all this perhaps. And most of these composers, including me and many other modern composers, we rarely, when we compose something, we are in such a flow that we don't sit and write the notation of the song at all, because we will forget the lyrical flow. We'll always remember the melody most of the times. So most of the composers would probably only get down to writing fair copies of their own works, if they even have the time to do that, or they'll have disciples do this. There are hundreds of compositions where I have not even sat and made fair copies yet. And so if I am like this, you can imagine how more involved Tyagaraja, Dikshidhar or those other people were in their own divine pursuit. They wouldn't be going around documenting things about themselves most of the time. So you are having so many things come into the play, as opposed to say a Western classical system where the composer was compelled to write everything himself, because it's all orchestrated music. So even he has to mention where it has to be a crescendo, where it has to be soft, where it has to be loud, where it has to be articulated in a particular way. Even the bowing has to be articulated or slurred. In the Mari kind of things also, he will have to be writing it very precisely. So if you actually look at a work of Mozart, you will probably be fairly confident that what you are hearing today is what he wrote then. Whereas with our system, it's absolutely impossible to be, actually it's very possible to be sure that it was not what they probably intended at all. Because so many things have happened. And when that happens, now I'll give you so many examples just based on this. Now Tyagaraja's Morabettite, which is heard in Todi, in the Valajapet school, Brindama and others have sung it several times. It's a beautiful composition in Tori, but it's actually listed as Rupavati only in the books that you will see. Similarly, Jnana Masakarada, which we hear in Purvikalani, is actually listed as Shadvida Margini, whereas Pahiramaduta, which is listed as Vasanta Varali, is being sung in Shadvida Margini. So like this, you will have so many things come in between. So in this context, why I am setting this base is for us to have some kind of a yardstick about what we are talking about today. When we are talking about ragas and relationships, we have to take all this we have to factor all this in and then still see what is the raga, because the only way to study raga is as it has evolved today. Rest of it is good for us to be aware of. We can now, for example, be cognizant of the fact that Muthuswami Dikshitar used some other phrases in Ananda Bhairavi. He also used, in his own compositions, you will see the distinction between, say, the way he had treatment of Ananda Bhairavi in, say, Tyagaraja Yoga Vaibhavam versus, say, a Manasa Guru Guha. So there is a distinction there. So those kind of distinctions you can be aware. Even that is more by the Karna Parampara of what we have heard so many musicians sing. Now, for example, Tyagaraja Yoga Vaibhavam. Yoga Vaibhavam. இப்படி சில பேர் பாடுவா. அதில் வந்து some people will also give a small Yoga Vaibhavam. That Nida, Nisa, Nisa. So this is handled in certain schools, including my Guru Brindama used to have that extra twist in that Nida, Nisa kind of thing. Whereas if you see some other musicians, you won't hear that Nida, Nisa actually. Whereas there is Anandeshwarana, another composition of Dikshitar, where again he has used some of those phrasings. So like this, Manasa Guru Guhas, the way in which that song flows will be quite different with some other phrases. So these kind of phrases you will see in that charanam happening in some schools. Now, Uthikadu Venkata Kavi's handling of melodic ragas like, say, Karagara Priya, Ananda Bhairavi, Devagandhari, Dvijayavanti, and all this is now only being studied because his compositions were hidden for more than 200 years. So only now we are seeing the magnificent way in which he has treated some of these ragas. He has explored some of these ragas. Some of the phrasings that you will see are all pretty brilliant. But again, when we look at those compositions, as opposed to, say, Tyagaraja or Dikshitar or something, I have always personally found most of the composers' treatment of ragas as we hear today are pretty similar, except certain schools of Dikshitas. Only Dikshitas schools you will see very lot of distinction. Now, for example, Saraswati Manohari, the way we sing today. Versus Saraswati Manohari Shakari Sadanandalagari Gori. Like this. That is a Dikshitar Saraswati Manohari. So you see, both of them composed in no hurry, of course. But point is how much the song has changed now. Even though we render Saraswati Manohari of Tyagaraja much more crisply many times. With a lot of jazzed up sangatis and all that, we use it more as a pep song. Now, talking about Saraswati Manohari, let's come to some relationships right away here. Sarigamadatha sadanipa magaresa. Sadanipa is a very, very important phrase in this raga. If you change it slightly, sanidanipa, if you do that sanidanipa, it becomes kokilidhwani. Tolinenu jesina puja phalamilage This is a beautiful composition of Tyagaraja again in this raga. He has also done Koniyade. Koniyade. So this is also another beautiful song. So, when we have a relationship as close as this Saraswati Manohari and Kokiladhvani, we have to take extra care to know the relationship between the two, that it begins and ends at the tip of the knee. As somebody said, your freedom ends at the tip of my nose. So, similarly, the freedom of us with respect to every raga will end at the tip of the distinction, the point of distinction. So, everything we have to be very aware of the distinctions. If we view, இதில் வந்து லைஃப்பில் வந்து எல்லாத்துலேயும் சமத்துவத்தை பார்க்கணும் அப்படின்றது ஒரு ஃபிலோசாஃபிக்கல் திங். பட் ராகத்தில் வந்து சமத்துவத்தையே பார்க்கக்கூடாது, நீங்கள் வித்தியாசங்களை தான் நிறையா பார்க்கணும். The more you are able to see the distinctions clearly within ragas, the better we'll be able to project this beauty. The less we are able to see that, and then we start, morphing everything into one breed, and then ask weird questions like why even have Janya Mela system, why have all these things, why have Arohanam. Then we get into very weird and dangerous zones. I'm saying all this more from the point of view of students who are, still students of art. A very, very good musician at the advanced level can talk like this. But students should not get confused by that, because it's not contextual. It's only contextual to the advanced level people that they are talking about. And I personally still think that whether it's art or sports, however advanced you are, the closer you are to the basics, the better you are as a person. And you will see some of the greatest, say, cricketers or sports people, including Don Bradman or say Sachin Tendulkar, they will not be practicing hitting sixes in the nets. They will only be practicing getting the ball in the middle of the bat. They'll always only focus on that. Rest will take care of itself. Like that, our creativity will take care of itself if you are actually focused on the core of the raga. The core of the raga is the middle of the bat for an artist, for a Carnatic musician. If we are getting away from the core and focusing on what all dazzling razzmatazz that we can do in the concert, then we are actually going to compromise on the core. And it's always the famous saying of operation success, patient is dead kind of thing. So, we have to be very, very aware of that, always. And the greatest musicians that I worked with, including Samangudi Srinivasa or Brindama or D.K. Patamal, all these people used to stress this thousands of times in conversations with me, in private as well as public. Stick to the core of the raga. All the rest has to follow from that. So, and the Srividya Upasana Pona and the Bindu, அப்படின்னு சொல்கிறோமே, அதுலேருந்து தான் உங்களுக்கு மற்ற சக்கரங்ஸ், மற்ற திங்ஸ், எவ்ரி else takes off from that. So, we have to be very aware of the distinctions in these relationships. இல்லை சார், அதெல்லாம் பிட்வீன் எல்லாம் இது கசின் ராகா மாதிரி தான் சார், இது பரவாயில்ல, இதுலேருந்து அப்படி வந்ததுன்னா பரவாயில்ல அப்படின்னு இப்போ வந்து யூரோப்பியன் பார்டர்ஸ் மாதிரி எல்லாமே வந்து ஓப்பன் பண்ணிட்டு, we can't go from Saraswati Manohari into this one and then from jump into that into something else and do like that. வீசாவே இல்லாமல் எந்த ராகத்தில் வேணாலும் போயிட்டு வந்துடுறேன் சார் அப்படின்னு, we can't do that. So, if you are talking relationships, the obvious one that we can all think of is, of course, in today's context, last 300 years or so at least, we talk about parent and derivative. The derivative need not be thought of as children, because many times the derived ragas are much older than the parent ragas. This whole system of Melakartas was evolved only about 400-500 years back and refined about 250-300 years back. So, you will see ragas like Ahiri, Husaini, Manji, so many of these ragas preceding their parents. But yet, why is the parent and derived raga system popular? Why is that classification popular? There is a reason for it. Because it's one of the most rational human inventions in musical history. The concept of the 72 Melakartas is easily among the best contributions to world music that Indian classical music and Carnatic have done actually. When we sit and talk about this, sometimes we should abolish all this. There are inconsistencies in the classification of some of these janyas later on, because that is based on so many minute nuances. Now, for example, Mohanatha vandu Harikambodhi, Shankarabaranam, Vachaspati or Mechakalani. In any of these four ragas you can classify it under. So then you can have debates about what is the most appropriate way to classify it under. So in that context, there are two options possible. One is a blind rule of whatever is the first Melakarta that comes in, assign it to that parent. Other is a little more involved DNA testing that is done to this raga, which will actually see which parent has these qualities. So on the DNA base panni, you will assign it appadina Kalyanile it's better suit. Why? Why not Vachaspati, for instance? Because I'll show this now.
Sariga pada sa sarapa gare sarida sariga gare gare re sari gare gare da.
So you see, Ri, Ga, Da. All these three can be oscillated in Mohanam.
Da sari ga re ga pa ga da pa da ga pa re ga.
It can also be rendered plain.
Ga pa da
Plain Da is also possible.
ga pa da sa ri.
Plain also you can render sometimes.
Ga re ga 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 re ga 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 re da da re ga sa re ga.
You can also have plain Gandharam. So, if you see, oscillation in Ga is forbidden in Shankarabaranam or Harikambodhi. So, straight away eliminate those two. Daivatam cannot be oscillated in Vachaspati. So, obviously Vachaspati is out. So, Kalyani is the only one which actually fits in all these qualities and qualifications to be declared as a rightful parent scale of Mohanam. So, like this you have to analyze a lot. In fact, for me, no joke, I figured out why it should be assigned under Mohanam only about, say, 10 years back, for instance, by which time I had already been practicing music for at least 35 years or whatever. Okay? So you see how involved and how subtle this rational approach also can be. The rational approach also can be extremely subtle and it involves so much of contemplation. Now I am sharing it so it becomes easy for us to understand, but for even very good musicians to actually come up with these things, it's very, very difficult. We have a raga that is totally not in relationship with any of this that we are talking about. So let's see. So now, parent and derived ragas. Now, if you take most of the books, you will see the ragas like Malayamarutam, Hamsadhvani, and all these Bauli, Bhupalam, they'll all be classified under the Shuddha Madhyamam parent scale. Malayamarutam will be under Chakravakam, Bauli will be under Maya Malagola. Whereas if you see some of the other ragas, like say Hamsadhvani, it will be generally under Shankarabaranam. And this is also not correct when you go one step higher. So when you do that, you will find that reason for that is the way the Gandharam is handled in ragas which do not have Madhyamam. The moment you handle that Ga, then Shuddha Madhyamam is eliminated out of the equation. If you take Maya Malagola, how will be the Sari Ga Ma Maya Malagola Chakravakam? Sari Ga Ma Padam Yetula Brotuva Teliyam Gama Padani Niraba Magare Gama. Moment to do that, where will you ever see that kind of Gandharam in Malay Marutam? Gap Gapadani Dapa Gapagare Pagares Nidani. Moment you do that, the that Gandharam, that with the minute oscillation almost on itself, that kind of Gandharam you will not find in any Shuddha Madhyama Ragam generally, because the way that Ga and Ma are related. So when you talk of ragas and relationships, it's more important to study the relationship between notes within that group of notes. If there is a Chatushruti Rishabham followed by a Sadharana Gandharam, how will the Re behave with respect to that? How will the Re behave if it is going to be followed by the Antara Gandharam? These are the important relationships that we have to understand in order to study the relationships between ragas. So, now Ga and Ma, Ga and Pa.
Ga ma pada nida 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 pa ma ga re ga ma.
That kind of Ga will only be possible with Pratimadhyamam.
Ga ma pada nida pa ma ga ma.
Very, very rare you will see that kind of Gandharam. That is not the default way. It can be an exception, Vishesha Prayogam in some schools. But that is not the default. So every time we have to always make the important distinction between what is default phrase and what is Vishesha Prayogam, which is a standard phrasing, which is a distinctive Vishesha Prayogam. So in these kind of cases,
Sari ga ri da ni ba ni da ri ga pa ga re sa ni ga pa ni pa ga re.
Always moment you hear that phrase, it's only Kalyani phrase. No way it is going to be Shankarabharanam phrase. So these kind of small mistakes can be there in the classification, which can be refined over time. This doesn't mean that we have to abolish the Mela Karta system because of some faulty classifications. If you take now Hindolam, for instance, it has been classified under Natabhairavi, but whereas you always have the option, if somebody wanted to classify it under the first possible Mela Karta, then Todi is already there. But they did not put it under Todi. Somebody already thought of this and put it under Natabhairavi. So like this, some things they have done correctly. But books have to be refined all the time. They have to be always understood in current context. Not merely current context, some other context also, because some of the contexts itself are refining, because we as a species keep refining. We are evolving as a species. So we keep improving ourselves. So there are definite things that need to be changed. Now for example, if you take Athana. So which is the main need that you hear in this? The Kakali Nishadam, there is more an Alpaswaram in today's renditions. Most of the times it's Alpaswaram means a note that is rendered fleetingly and often with a force. That there's a force over there to that knee. So that Kakali Nishadam being such a fleeting note cannot be the main distinguishing feature of Athana in today's thing. Whereas if you hear audios of Athana rendered by some artists even in the 30s, 40s, you will see that they had a far more important treatment for the Kakali Nishadam itself in some dramatic phrases, because Athana was also used a lot in drama. So you have to understand the context in which the raga was used in those times, sometimes dictated the way in which certain notes were exaggerated, and sometimes that percolated into concert tradition also. Kind of phrases will be a very dramatic entry for some contrast in the raga, and that was used by even legendary artists. If you see some of the compositions that in some schools, the way they'll render, they'll sometimes even in the alapanas and all that, they'll render these kind of notes. In Mummurtulu, for instance,
Mummurtulu gumi godi pagade muchete.
This is Tyagaraja composition. In this,
Sammati garju kodu karagavini samshaya,
that this kind of phrase my Guru Brindama would render. But whereas Sammangudi Srinivasayar, who learned from her, changed it to
samshaya re, re, sa.
Like this, if you actually hear the recordings of both of these, you will actually see this distinction where he changed this consciously because he probably felt that ga, but when my guru used to render, it would be absolutely refined, it will not be dramatic at all. She used to be able to render anything in a classiest possible way. Even an Antara Gandharam in Ananda Bhairavi would sound very refined and very polished. Whereas some of us, if you render even Sadharana Gandharam, it sounds dramatic. That's a different, the stylistic thing, the way in which we give the voice, the way in which our mindset is, everything comes into play. So, why I am saying is, so Athana over time has now become clearly more of a Karara Priya Janyam than a Shankarabharana Janyam. Even though 99 of the 100 books that you will see will be actually quoting it as Shankarabharana Janyam. So when you are talking of relationships like this between parent and this thing, so today the raga has evolved like this. Begada, which is another very, very hotly debated topic, whether it should be classified under Harikambodhi or under Dhira Shankarabharanam. If you see 99 books, it will say Shankarabharanam. And just because those 99 books say it is Shankarabharanam, a lot of artists will bend backwards to try and prove that it is appropriate thing, which is very, very artificial to do that. Because if you see again Begada, the Kakali Nishadam is an Alpaswaram. Whereas the main Nyasa Swaram is the Kaishika Nishadam. Somebody just did a classification error. It's just like your accounting, the credit debit entry le edo or kuti thing, that doesn't justify it. Even if there is an accounting error found in manuscript of 11th century, then you just change that thing today. You don't say, no, it's a very traditional error, so we better worship it as tradition. This is the confusion in art. Many times we tend to deify the wrong things, sentimentalize the wrong things, and then start multiplying the errors instead of rationally looking at it and then just correcting it and refining it as we go. So this approach is what I have always advocated in art. You cannot sentimentalize everything as thing. I always give this example of a temple, a beautiful temple built in say 2nd century BC or something. The temple is traditional. All the architectural beauty is traditional. Not all the cobwebs and spiders which have been nesting in that temple for so many things. That is not the tradition. So don't confuse the cobwebs as tradition. This doesn't mean break down the whole temple and then build a whole new temple. No. We just clear the temple of the cobwebs. That's what is refining tradition. And I am not the only one to talk about this. Other great musicians, including G.N.B., Lalgudi Jayaraman, and so many other great artists have always talked about having the perfect balance, the sense of grammar all the time, the sense of the intellect always being alive and active in always understanding these things so that we are able to do justice to the art and take the art forward. So, in this context, Begada,
Gama pada padani dapa pada padani dapa mani madam.
Even traditional compositions of Tyagaraja, Muthuswami Dikshitar, Uthukadu Venkatakavi and so many other composers, if you see Begada, always the Kaishika Nishadam has been more prominent than the Kakali Nishadam. They might have rendered in some phrases Kakali Nishadam also. But even then it was not, if you do a very simple approach to this, if you hear one composition, count the number of times Kaishika Nishadam appears and the length of duration for Kaishika Nishadam. Today we can do all this very easily in information age. Number of times Kakal Nishadam appears and the amount of time in milliseconds or whatever way you want to classify it is spent on that note. It's very easy to prove that the ratio will be almost 75:25 or more for Kaishika Nishadam. So, and you hear 10 different great artists singing Begada. Normal recordings of 10 artists. Okay? You will see again the same things. Even in their alapanas, even in their kalpanaswarams, everything. So it's a very easy way for us to classify. We don't have to then go out of our way. Illa நம்ம காக்கல் நிஷாதம் வெச்சும் பாடலாம் சார் பேகடா. தெரியாதா எனக்கு தெரியாதா அது? Of course பாடலாம். இப்படியே பாடிட்டு இருந்தால் பாடிடலாம். அது ஒரு ப்ரூவிங் பாயிண்ட்டுக்காக we can do it தவிர நேச்சுரலாக பாடிச்சா அப்படி வருதா பேகடா அப்படின்னு தான் அங்கே கொஸ்டின். So we have to be very, very clear in thinking and not retrofit our thinking into something that was written long back. So we should not change our whole approach, and this is very often seen in art, and this is something that I keep always talking about a lot, because the scientific approach can easily be now used in Carnatic music for us to better understand, better appreciate, better classify, better exemplify, and better execute our own thing. Talking about execution, there is this famous instance of a presidential party in US where an opera singer sang so badly that the aides of the president really got nervous, and so they went to him and asked, "Sir, what do you really think of an execution?" He said, "I'm all for it." So, coming back to the Janaka Janya classification, there are certain inconsistencies in the Mela Janya classification, but still the system is very, very sound. 95% of the ragas will fit into a Janaka classification very easily. When we understand ragas and relationships, it's important for us to understand this, because this is one simple way for students to not make major mistakes. Now, for example, if they see Arohanam of Sagarigama Padapasa in Begada and Anandabhairavi, the moment they see the distinction of the parent scale over there, whether this is Janyam of Shankara Varnam or Harikambodhi or Natabhairavi or Kararapriya, again those are big subjects. So, the moment they see that, they won't sing the same Arohanam, they won't sing the same notes for Anandabhairavi and Begada. So, that is why this system is so important. If you see so many examples, now the Padapasa, both of them use Sagari Gama Padapasam, Sagari Gama Padapasam. Now, if nobody uses Sagari Gama, then the Padapasa is the common thing here. Even with the Padapasa, you can bring the distinction between these ragams. That is what the beauty of Carnatic music is. Padapasam, Gama Padapasam, Gama Padapasam, Gama Padapasam, Rema Padapasam, Ayaki. Gama Padapasam, Purikalani. Gama Padapasam, Begada. Sari Gama Padapasam, Purnachandrika. Gama Padapasam, Anandabhairavi. So you see, just Padapasa is the note. I have actually composed a whole piece called Padapasa, only a Swarakriti with only this Padapasa in these 5 ragams. Just to see the subtle difference, the beauty of Carnatic music, using only Panchamam, Chatushriti Devatam, Panchamam and Shadjam. Of it, the only note that is non-Prakriti Swaram is the Chatushriti Devatam. This is amazing beauty of Carnatic music. You cannot match this. You will find no system in the world which can make a distinction of 5 ragams using just one note of the Da in that same phrase of Padapasa. And that is what we are talking about here. And when we are talking about something as subtle as that, it is that is what is fine art, subtle art. So, when we study ragas and relationships, these are the things that we need to really get into. This is the level of depth that we need to get into. And this is the level, only then the art will slowly reveal itself to our thing. As somebody said beautifully, eloquently, art is enough, music is enough for a lifetime, but lifetime is not enough for music. So like that, now, if you take similar examples with just say Riga Resa for instance. Riga Resa. அப்படின்னு எடுத்ததுன்னா, you are spending all the time in the Re only, even though you are saying Ga. Rema Badani. It's only Da. The last minute you are actually saying, you are saying Ni all the time. But Padani Dapa Mabadapa Madapa Marega Resa. என்ன ராகம் இது? Nayaki. So, we don't even need the Arohanam, Avrohanam to actually know what raga it is. Some of these ragas are so phrase specific. The key phrase. Abdina, you don't need the rest of the Sarigama Pamathanisa to know it is Sahana. right? Like this. Nayaki has got this kind of a rigarisa, where you spend so much time on that. This is why it's only starting on da only. Sarima bandi bhajan அப்படினு போட்டாலும் கேட்கிறதுக்கு நல்லா இருக்கும். Sarima badani sarima badabasani mabadabarni. So like this, so many varieties it gives, because the way in which the same note is handled in different contexts. This is again something, when I work with so many, or when I even hear some of the Western masterpieces, which are brilliant in so many other ways, I won't see the same note being treated in a different way. So this is what is so paramount to us when we talk of ragas and relationships. The same note, even within the same raga, can have so many different contexts. Now take it the madhyamam of, say, Begada or Shankarabharanam. It's almost on the ga over there. So how many types of way in that gama? Then you go to that kind of ma. So almost 4 or 5 different varieties of ma just in that begada, depending on the context. So these kind of, so many varieties are there in that notes. So coming back to the rigarisa. So if you just go slightly 1 degree next to that, slightly less than that, less pronounced than Nayaki is Shri, if you are to be very technical about it. Then there is one more. If you go Bangala, Shuddha Bangala. So, if you go to the next level, that ga is almost on ma. That ga is higher than Antaragandharam in Darbar. It actually goes all the way up to ma. So it's not even Antaragandharam, it's 2 notes above what it's supposed to be. So you see, just that Gandharam, the way in which slowly from the Chaturshruti Rishabham, it has moved off to ma in the raga, the way in which the ragas are rendered. And that is why we have to be very careful. We should not sing Nayaki phrases in Darbar or Darbar phrases in Nayaki. Of course, unless you are a Maharaja Brahmishnath who can justify Nayaki ila Darbar or Darbara abdin or ketar or dharam paadite. So அது அந்த அவருடைய லெவலுக்கு அது ஒரு ஹியூமராக பியூட்டிஃபுல்லாக இருக்கும். பட் வி ஹேவ் டு பி கேர்ஃபுல். நாம் அது தர்பாரும் இல்லை, நாயக்கியும் இல்லை, ஒரு நாய் பார்க் அப்படின்னு ஒரு லெவலில் நாம் பாடக்கூடாது அதை. So, when you talk of ragas like this, then there are certain ragas which are only connected more, not only so much by the arohanam, but more by the mood that they can generate. Now if you take something like Ahiri and Ghanta. This Ghanta is a very, very beautiful hybrid raga which has its own unique identity. A bit of Dhanyasi you will see traces of Punna Gaurali, traces of Dhanyasi, traces of some Asaveri, traces of Ahiri, all that. And then Sagariga, that Sagariga also you will see in that, which also if you look at it in isolation, it could be say a little bit of Bhairavi, Ananda Bhairavi kind of thing. So it's a very beautiful hybrid raga, but it should not sound like a fruit salad. It should sound like a milkshake when you sing Ghanta. You should not have all these parts separately distinctive. Musicல வந்து fruit salad is never good actually, unless it's an intended Ragamalika composition which is served as a fruit salad. It should otherwise be only milkshake, all finely blended together. So, அந்த கண்டால வந்து அந்த இருக்கிற அந்த kind of mood and the mood in say Ahiri, even though they are not related by Arohanam or Arohanam, they are still related by the kind of mood that they can generate. And that is why padam composers and the others have used that raga for those kind of moods.
Nayamune kailagas Nayamune kailagas Nilaya Makutemu Nayamune Kailaga.
So this kind of mood you will see very beautifully in some compositions in Ahiri.
Modamuto Sayat Bhakti Modamuto.
So this kind of beautiful atmosphere in that, the space and the feel of that thing you will see. Say even Dikshidhar chose both Ahiri and Ghanta for his Navavarana masterpieces. Brilliant works, of course. So, certain ragas are like that, which are not exactly related by this. Now, before I move on to some of the other things, I also want to make this slightly interactive. So, if you have any questions, I'm willing to take them now. Address any issues, yes. Would you like to come to the front and probably use one of these mics? Yes, whoever wants, please feel free to come somewhere towards the front so that you can just use the microphone. இதே கூட ஏதோ யூஸ் பண்ணலாம். Okay, fine. Am I too loud? வால்யூம் வேணா கொஞ்சம் குறைச்சிடுங்க. It's perfect? Okay.
நமஸ்காரம் சார். அந்த தீக்ஷிதர் காம்போசிஷன் ஸ்ரீராமம் ரவிகுல சோமம் நாராயண கவுளையில் அதில் கேட்கும் போது நிறையா அந்த சில ராக நிறையா ஆஸ்பெக்ட்ஸ் வருது. ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி ஒரு கிருத்திக்கு முன்னாடி இன்ட்ரடக்ஷனுக்கு ஆலாபனை கொடுக்கறது எப்படி பண்ணணும்? இல்லை,
வெரி குட் கொஸ்டின். இது வந்து நான் வந்து ஸ்ரீராமம் the way I've heard say people like Samangudi Srinivasayar and even sometimes some of the other artists sing the Narayana Gaula in the say Varnam or some of the Tyagaraja kritis.
Inna ludayera kundave ipudaina delupavaya Shriramaya.
இது ஒரு Narayana Gaula of Tyagaraja, whereas his own composition
Kadalevedu kaderamudu kadalevedu,
that itself you will see slightly the atmosphere change in that. So Dikshita's, of course, Sri Ramam has certain phrasings that you will probably not see in the Tyagaraja school. Many of these compositions, like I even mentioned Saraswati Manohari and all that. So typically, I personally think that depending on the school in which you have learnt, unless if it's a school of say somebody like say Brinda school, which was reputed to not change things. That means there were fantastic musicians, but also with a high reputation of being preservers of the tradition. So they would not change their own, they will not add their sangatis, they will not subtract or detract. So, and the kind of school if you learn, then you don't change also. You just try and play, I mean unless it's blatantly against your philosophy of grammar or aesthetics in a particular ragam. So, in these kind of cases, if I hear this Narayana Gaula from so many different artists and I'm hearing so many versions in that, I sort of use my own sense of aesthetics of the Narayana Gaula, and I'll modify that Sangati slightly to bring it to the structure of the Narayana Gaula as I know it. Unless I know that Dikshitar intended in some other way and it is provable thing like that. So it all goes down to your own, the rigor with which you approach the subject. So if you actually have to be rigorous, you have to really see if there is some existing Dikshita school which is known not to change, which is almost an impossibility today. So now the ragam vasidana, I played more like today's Narayana Gaula only.
You mentioned this, but I don't know if you have time for this topic. Bhairavi versus Karahara Priya versus Nata Bhairavi. Sometimes, especially upper Re-Gala Bhairavi Alapana Kekacha, I feel more like Karahara Priya than somehow it doesn't feel like Nata Bhairavi.
Nata Bhairavi versus Bhairavi,
Bhairavi vandu Nata Bhairavi Janyam.
அது தப்பு. Actually Bhairavi can use பண்ணலாம் actually, because the way in which it is, the Shuddha Devatam is still used more prominently in Bhairavi than say the Chatusha Devatam. Even Padani Dapama mattu you can use Shuddha Devatam.
Yeah, but not about the Shuddha Riga.
No, I am coming to that. Anga neenga appadi kekringona, that is what is the CMCM, the common mistakes in Carnatic music, and the category la varum adu. I have done a whole series called CMCM. Some of it will be there in YouTube also. You can go check out some of these things where I have explained some of these aspects. The Bhairavi and Karahara Priya la paadacha, one of the things I tell my students, கரி நீத அப்படின்னு பாடிட்டுனா உங்களுக்கு எப்பவுமே இந்த டபுள் நீ the double knee, double ga in Karahara Priya is always better. If you do that in Karahara Priya, then it will start sounding like Bhairavi. So default, I am again saying default phrase. Exceptionally, you can always do something here. அப்படின்னு பாடிட்டுனா கிளியர் Karahara Priyaவே வந்துடும். அது அங்கே போயிடும் அது. ஸோ டபுள் நீ டபுள் கா வந்து நிறைய தரம் வந்து ஈவன் சம் ஆஃப் த ஃபேமஸ் ஆர்டிஸ்ட் வந்து சம்டைம்ஸ் தே மே நாட் ஆல்வேஸ் கன்சிஸ்டன்ட்லி பி ரெண்டரிங் இன் Karahara Priya Bhairavi. அண்ட் பாடிச்ச கூட அந்த ஃப்ரேசிங்ஸில் வந்து அந்த டிஸ்டிங்ஷன் இஸ் நாட் மெயின்டைன்ட் ஆல்வேஸ். இப்படின்லாம் நம்ம அப்படியே அப்பப்போ you have to keep showing this. And you have to keep bringing that Shuddha Devatam, Chatusha Devatam in play when you are doing Bhairavi. If you are not doing that all the time, then you can sort of only, if you are focused in only that first tetrachord of the raga, then you can have this kind of confusions happen. But even in that case, this double ga, a lot of people actually make the other mistake of rendering Karahara Priya like Bhairavi. So they won't render the double ga all the time properly, so it will always sound more and more like that. So that is where the thing is. Where's the mic?
Can you touch on Asaveri also? You said it's the name of Todi.
Yeah.
Sometimes Ga, I don't feel like it's exactly Todi. It's just a little bit.
Okay, I will talk about that. See, Asaveri, when you actually render some parts of the thing, it's more like Punagavarali kind of a bass you will have. Except the rigor is you have to keep on rendering it properly. That ma to re, if you come most of the times, 99% of the time you won't go wrong. But in many compositions you will have this kind of phrasings also will happen. Even in Tyagaraja's Mahapala Vilasika, if you see, or Raramayinti, இப்படி நிறைய பேர் பாடுவாது actually. So அப்படி பாடிச்சு, then you will have this kind of funny thing. Nagaraja Gritsagarabja Bhavasagarantaka Suragagara Kanakagadhira Suranagamana Sharanagata Shrityagarajanutama in the kind of Pamagara is a kind of thing. So that kind of times you will have this ga come into play in a way, but try and avoid that Pamagara and that Also the Padani, the Pama, I don't like it in Asaveri, Mukhari and some of these ragas. Panidapama is always a better one. If you start doing this Padanidapama, then it starts sounding very vague. Same in Mukhari.
Rema panidama panidare nida panidapama
Panidapama kind of thing you should avoid in that. Similarly, Sarigarisana in Begada should be avoided. Kind of things all should be avoided in Begada. Even though they'll sound flashy, you can have equally flashy options without that wrong thing over there. Begada, Sagariga, main Tha to Ga.
Sagariga mada magare sagari.
Easily it will sound as good or actually better because it's also grammatically right. So it's just same thing. ரீதிகோளல இந்த ஃப்ரேஸ்லாம் நம்ம வந்து இல்லை சார் கேட்கறதுக்கு நல்லா இருக்குது சார் அப்படின்னா கேட்கறதுக்கு எவ்வளவோ திங்ஸ் நன்னதாக இருக்கும். பட் அது ஈக்குவலி நன்னா வந்து நம்ம இன்னும் கிராமட்டிக்கலி கரெக்டாகவும் அதே கேட்கறதுக்கு நல்லா இருக்கிறது பாடிச்சுன்னா இட் வில் ஆக்சுவலி சவுண்ட் ஈவன் பெட்டர். ஈஸியாக நல்லா தானே இருக்குது. It's going to be no less flashy. நல்ல சாரீரம் பேசுறதுனா you can still sing those correct things. All the more responsibility for good சாரீரம் people to sing the correct things. Because they can actually influence taste. They can improve taste. They can refine taste. They can lift themselves, the art and all the listeners along with them. So good voiced people should actually choose the right options. All the more reason. So,
Niramagare Janani Ninnovena Dikyavaram Jagamulo Jagamulo Nagana இது வந்து ஒன்றும் ஜஸ்டிஃபை பண்ணவே தேவையில்லை. இல்லை சார் அது வந்து அந்த ட்ரீட்டிஸில் யாரோ பாடுந்து ஏதோ ஒரு இதில் இருந்தது. ஆல் திஸ் இஸ் நாட் இவன் கமனிதமகரே கமனிதமகரே இஸ் ஈக்குவலி குட் ஃபார் த ட்ரீட்டிகோலா. கமனிதமகரே இன்னும் பேசிட்டுனா அது பாடுங்க. It will still sound very attractive. The song will be no less attractive because it's grammatically correct. You can always find grammatically correct flashes. The flashes itself that you render in the songs can still sound better. இப்போ போகீந்திர சயனம் குந்தலவராளி ஃபார் இன்ஸ்டன்ஸ், அதில் so many phrasings that we sing. போகீந்திர சயனம் சயனம் குருகுஜலதயினம் புருஷம். அதுனா மகசா அப்படின்னு ஒரு phrase வந்து அது just because it sounds a frill. No, that raga doesn't have that frill. Raga will always be turning in its grave. There's a beautiful story of Sangita Devatas which I'm going to be actually presenting in a dance drama in Cleveland this year, but I'll share the story alone as a preview with some of you. Narada once was wandering in the forests and suddenly he heard some beautiful people weeping, and on investigation he found all these beautiful ladies, each disfigured in some way. And he went and asked, what is this? No, we are only Sangita Devatas. When musicians like you make these mistakes, we get disfigured like this. So Narada, of course, who had a very high opinion of his own music, felt extremely mortified by the whole thing. And he felt repentant and guilty and wanted to find a solution to this. So then he asked them, Idigana Pariharam. Finally they said, if we listen to perfect musician, then we'll get cured. And the perfect musician in the world is Nada Tanumanisham Shankaram Abdin Tyagaraja Swami Padirkapudiya Paramashivan. So, a benefit concert of Shiva was organized by Narada. And Shiva went and said, I can only be inspired to sing that kind of perfect music if I get perfect listeners. So, what's the moral of the story? And the perfect listeners in the whole world were only Brahma and Vishnu. So, Narada invited them as guests of honor, and so there was a beautiful concert of Shiva, and the Sangita Devatas got cured. This is the story actually. Sorry? Ramapriya Hemavati. Oh. இல்லை அது வந்து அந்த உத்தராங்கத்தையே if you keep playing more of the Padanisa part of it, you can easily slip into that. That is why you have to keep playing, you have to keep bringing into play the Shuddha Rishabham and the Chatushuddha Rishabham. The moment you do that, the Gandharam, the way in which it's handled will also come into play. Sari ga ma pada ni da pa ma ga re ga ma pada ni da pa ma ga re. So the way in which that is rendered, re ga ma pada ni da pa ma pada ni ga re ni da da ni sari ga re ni da ma pada. When you hear Hemavati, you have to keep using that ga. You have to, even in the Uttarangam phrases, keep bringing the higher ga, higher re and all that into play all the time. So, and Hemavati again, you have to, if you have to do not forget the ma. If you don't do that many times, there is a kind of things. If you keep doing without showing the ma, then again you can easily, create a different mode. So again, you have to be bringing into play some of these ragas which are dependent on the sequences. Now, if you take Shankarabharanam, Kalyani, Todi, all these are not only sequence dependent. They are not based on they are more the prayoga centric ragas. Whereas certain ragas, even the Melakartas, you will be more forced to bring the sequence and the notes itself into play. Now, Hemavati, Dharmavati kind of ragams, they are not so much of the prayoga oriented ragas, even though prayogas are still evolving in some of these ragas. Let's put it this way. Compared to a Karagarapriya, Hemavati is still an evolving raga. The body of work that you will see in Karagarapriya is not matched by Hemavati. So if you have 100 compositions in, say, Todi, Shankarabharanam and all this, you may not have the same 100 in, say, Keeravani and all these things. So Keeravani has evolved little more because, it's rendered, people actually feel more aesthetic, connect to that, Vachaspati and all that. But some of these other Melakartas are more scale oriented, they are scale dependent. So you have to keep on showing the scale, whole scale, lot of times to bring that distinction. Yeah. Hey, Pranav or somebody, mic. Thank you, Prasad sir.
Thank you, sir. Sir, when we talk about Riti Gaulai, as you said, நிறைய பெரிய மியூசிஷியன்ஸ் நம்ம பழைய இருக்கவாளே வந்து மனசி ஜமா அப்படி சொன்னால் தான் எனக்கு அது கரெக்டான ரீதிக்குள்ள அப்படி சொல்லணும். அப்படி எனக்கு தோன்றுறது மனசி ஜமான் அப்படி அந்த பனிசா இஸ் ஆக்சுவலி இன் பிளே. பட் ஸ்டில் அந்த ஆரோகணோட கிரமம் வந்து அதை பற்றி கொஞ்சம் சொல்ல முடியுமா சார்? அது எதனால் அது வந்து ஜஸ்டிஃபை ஆகிடுது? அதை மெனி பீப்புள் ஆர் ஃபாலோயிங் இட். நீ இப்போ நீ சார் நீ சொன்னாக்க சொல்லி அதை ஒரு மங்களகரமாக ஜஸ்டிஃபை பண்ணுறது வந்து
இல்லை ரொம்ப இம்பார்ட்டன்ட் பாயிண்ட். ரீதி கவுலாவில் வந்து எனக்கு ஒரு பெரியவா என்ன சொன்னான்னா, அந்த சானினிப்பா வந்து மந்திர ஸ்தாயில் மட்டும்தான் சானினிப்பா. மேல் ஸ்தாய் வந்துடுதுன்னா சனிதமா இந்த மா வந்துடணும். மேலே வந்து சானினிப்பா வந்து நாட் generally allowed in Ritigola. If you see the actual compositions also, you won't see Saninipa in the higher phrases actually. If it is there, then the artist's thing only there is. Stylistic preference or their padantram or whatever. நான் வாசிக்கிறது வந்து மனசிஜ மனசமோதினி மனசிஜ மனசமோதினி இப்படிதான் நான் பாடி வாசி. எனக்கு இப்படி தான் பாடுமே ஆக்சுவலாக. அதில் சில பேர் வந்து இன்னொரு CMCM என்னன்னா இப்படி கூட சில பேர் அப்படி டோட்டல் இதாக யூஸ் பண்ணி பாடியிருக்கா. பட் இந்த ரீதிகோலா இஸ் அ வெரி பிக் சப்ஜெக்ட். அதில் வந்து இன்னொரு வெரி இம்பார்ட்டன்ட் பாயிண்ட் டு ரிமெம்பர், இதே வந்து எனக்கு பிடிக்காது ஆக்சுவலாக. அந்த ரீ வந்து அந்த மாதிரி அது அந்த ரீதி கவுலா ரீ அப்படி கிடையாது. அப்படி பாடித்துனா அது ஒன்லி தீ கவுலா. ஓகே, ஸோ த மெயின் திங் இஸ் நித நித மகரிச. இந்த கரிசா நிதமா அந்த ஃபோர்ஸ். இதுக்கு புக்கில் நீங்கள் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா அது நொக்கு இது ஏதாவது யூஸ் பண்ணியிருப்பாங்க அந்த டெக்னிக்கல் டேர்ம்ஸ் எல்லாம். பட் த பாயிண்ட் இஸ் த கண்டிப்பு இந்த மாதிரி சில நிறைய இப்போது கமகம்ஸில் வந்து தேர் ஆர் சோ மெனி புக்ஸ் விச் ஹேவ் டிஃப்ரெண்ட் டேர்ம்ஸ் டிபெண்டிங் ஆன் த மியூசிகாலஜிஸ்ட் ரேஷனல். தீக்ஷிதா மென்ஷன்ஸ் தசகமக கிரியா அப்படின்னு இன் இஸ் காம்போசிஷன் மீனாட்சி மேமுதந்தகி. அதுக்குள்ளே இட் evolved into some more later on. Some more gamakams were added from other schools. And the stylistic features on some of in Veena playing based, Pani Subbarama Dikshithar has based, some more gamakams, all this. So, but whatever way you want to call it, a rose is a rose is a rose. So, coming to that, நிதம ஜனனி நின்னோவேன. இப்படி தான் நான் ஜென்ரலாக வாசிக்கிறேன் இப்போலாம். முன்னாடி ஐ வாஸ் பிளேயிங் த அதர் வே ஆல்சோ, பட் தென் ஐ கிராஜுவலி சேஞ்ச் இன் டு திஸ். எஸ், அவங்க முன்னாடி வந்துடுங்க. ஓ சௌமியா, யூ ஹேவ் எ கொஸ்டின்? ஐ வில் ஃபினிஷ் வித் ஹிம் அண்ட் தென் கம் டு.
தேசிக தோடி இருக்கு இல்லையா, அது பாதி புக்ஸ் தான் பார்க்க முடியாது. இப்போ ஒரு காம்போசிஷனுமே கேட்க முடியறது இல்லை. ப்ராபப்ளி பிருந்தாமா ஒரே ஒரு பாட்டு ஒன்று சுப்ராய சாஸ்திரி இருக்குன்னு கேள்விப்பட்டு நான் கேட்டதுக்குள்ளே பார்த்துருக்கேன், நான் சொல்ல கேட்டிருக்கேன். இப்போ தேசிக தோடின்னு வந்து ஒன்றே ஒன்று பாடப்படுறது நமோ நமோ ராகவாயனிஷம். அது கேட்டால் முக்கால்வாசி வெர்ஷன்ஸ் சிந்துவை மாதிரி தான் இருக்குது. அதுக்கும் இதுக்கும் உண்மையாகவே அலைட் ராகமா இல்லை சிஎம்சிஎம் அதுவும்?
இல்லை இல்லை இல்லை, பேசிக்கலி எனக்கு
என்ன டிஃப்ரென்ஸாக என்ன டிஃப்ரென்ஸ் ரெண்டுத்துக்கும் சிமிலாரிட்டினா என்ன என்ன இதை ரிஃபர் ஆகுது ரெண்டும்?
ஆமாம், இப்போ இஃப் நமோ நமோ ராகவாயா நீங்கள் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா இட் இஸ் எஸ் தோடி வித்தவுட் த தோடி கமகம்ஸ். அப்படி பாடிட்டுனா ஆல்மோஸ்ட் சிந்து பெருவி அது, வித்தவுட் த அந்நியஸ்வரம்ஸ். நமோ நமோ ராகவாய நமோ நமோ கணேசம் நமோ நமோ, இந்த மாதிரி தான் எனக்கு பாடும் அது. ஸோ அப்படி பாடிட்டுனா இட் இஸ் சரி கம பத நிதி அது அது மைனஸ் பண்ணிட்டுனா அது சிந்து பெருவி தான் ஆக்சுவலி. அதுக்கு தான் வந்து அது தேசிக தோடின்னு அப்போ சொல்லியிருந்தேன். அந்த தேசிய தோடி அது இட் இஸ் ஃப்ரம் அ ரீஜன் ஸ்பெசிஃபிக்காக இருந்து அந்த தோடி ஸ்வரத்தை வச்சு இருந்த ராகத்துக்கு டிஸ்டிங்விஷ் பண்ணுறதுக்கு வந்த பேர் இருந்தால் என்னுடைய ஃபீலிங். ஸோ அதில் வந்து இப்போ நீங்கள் டிஎஸ் பார்சாரதி புக்ஸ் எல்லாம் சிலது பார்த்தீங்கன்னா ராஜு விடலை இந்த மாதிரி சில புக்ஸும் வந்து தேசிக தோடின்னு போட்டிருக்கோம். இன்ஃபேக்ட் நேப்பு கூட குண்டே ஆல்சோ ப்ராப்ளி இஸ் லிஸ்டட் அஸ் தேசிக தோடி. பட் ஈவன் தோ இட் இஸ் சங் இன் சுப்பத்தோராளி டுடே. ஐங்காரோலாம் பாடித்துனா சுப்பத்தோராளி தான் பாடுவேன், நேப்பு கூட குண்டேலாம். ஸோ அதில் வந்து ராஜுவேடில் ஆஃப்கோர்ஸ் வி சிங் இன் ப்ராப்பர் தோடி இட் செல்ஃப் நோ. ஸோ எனக்கு தெரிஞ்சு இவ்வளோ தான். அது மைனஸ் தோடி கமகம்ஸ். அந்த தேசிக தோடியில் பாடணும்னா மைனஸ் தோடி கமகம்ஸ் சரிகபத நித நிதப மகரேச அப்படி பாடித்துனா இந்த ராகம் வந்துடும். சாரி, எக்ஸாக்ட்லி. பட் சிந்து பேரவியில் யூ ஹேவ் ஆல் த அந்நியஸ்வரம்ஸ். சிந்து பேரவியில் 12 ஸ்வரமும் வந்துடும். நம்ம யூ கேன் யூஸ் ஆல் த 12 notes ஆஃப் இந்தியன் மியூசிக் இன் சிந்து பேரவி. வேறஸ் இதில் வந்து அப்படி கிடையாது. திஸ் வில் ஒன்லி ஸ்டில் பி அன் உப்பாங்க ராகம் without those notes, so you don't see the other notes Anyaswarams happening in this version of Deshika Todi. Soumya wanted to adukapram Mike.
இந்த ராமபிரியால வந்து சுத்த ரிஷபம் இருக்கு இல்லையா, அதுல வந்து ஒரு சங்கதி வந்து அந்த சுத்த ரிஷபம் இருக்கச்சு, when you give this particular sangadi, that re sometimes tends to go a little higher, which can be considered like a trishruti rishabam, which I've heard if you consider that 22 shruti scale. So is that allowed for a shuddha rishabam, or do we have to be extra careful not to do that?
அது வந்து நீங்கள் ஆக்சுவலாக பார்த்தீங்கன்னா அந்த ரூட்டில் போனீங்கன்னு வச்சுக்கோ, நம்ம என்ன பாடுறோமோ ஆசிலோகிராஃப் போட்டுதுன்னா அதுக்கும் நம்ம பாடுற ஸ்வரத்துக்கும் நீங்கள் கேட்குறதுக்கும் சம்மந்தமே கிடையாது. This is really because the human ear actually has its own way of filtering the notes. அப்படின்னா என்ன நோட் இது அப்படின்னு உங்கள் காதில் விழுது. ஆக்சுவலாக நீங்கள் ஆசிலோகிராஃப் போட்டிங்கன்னா அது ஏதோ கா கிட்டே இருக்கும் இந்த வாய்ஸ். ஆக்சுவலாக the frequency you will see in that will be somewhere beyond the higher re or somewhere over there. But our ears are so culturally attuned that we only hear the ni over there, or we imagine the ni. The Carnatic listener is a very, very unique species in the world by my experience. No, it's a compliment only. So you can all feel happy. அது நீங்களும் வந்து the way you listen to music is something that a North Indian listener will never be able to listen like you do. அப்படின்றதுலாம் நீங்கள் எவ்வளோ அழகா ஆஹா என்ன ஞானமாக பாடினுக்காரா இப்படி கேட்குறதுலாம் வந்து வேற லிசனர் கொஞ்சம் விஜயவாடா தாண்டினீங்கன்னு வச்சுக்கோங்க, யூ ஒன்ட் ஃபைண்ட் a single listener will be able to actually listen to that one. They will all go by delivery, but you just go by concept itself. அந்த கான்செப்டை கேட்டு அப்ரிஷியேட் பண்ணக்கூடிய ஆடியன்ஸ் வேற எங்கேயுமே பார்க்க முடியாது. ஏன்னா நான் வந்து அதாவது இப்போ நான் இங்கே இருக்குச்சு அது பூன்னு தான் சொல்லுவேன். இல்லை ஆக்சுவலி it's both, it's a bit of both actually. The boon in the sense that your sense of enjoyment is always at a high plane. நீங்கள் வந்து ஒரு ஊத்துக்காடு வேங்கடகவியில் எப்பவுமே ஒரு சர்வானந்த பூஷணியமாக அப்படி ஜம்மன் எல்லாத்தையும் ஒரு ஆனந்தமாக எல்லா கச்சேரி, இது மைக்கு சரியில்லை வேற இல்லை, மியூசிஷியனுக்கு வாய்ஸே வேண்டாம், நாய்ஸே இருந்தால் போகிறோம், அக்காம்பனிஸ்ட் என்ன வேணாலும் அங்கே பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கலாம். இவ்வளவும் கேட்டு நீங்கள் ஒரு எதுக்குள்ள காம்போதி ஆஹா என்னவா பாடினார், ஒரு ரேவதி கூட இவ்வளோ அழகாக பாடினா அப்படின்னு ரசிக்கக்கூடிய ஆடியன்ஸ் இருக்கீங்க. ஸோ எது வேணாலும் கேட்டு நீங்கள் யூஆர் ஆல்வேஸ் இன் அ ஸ்டேட் ஆஃப் பிளிஸ், நோ மேட்டர் வாட் எவர் த சர்க்கம்ஸ்டன்ஸ். Whereas, from a delivery perspective, it really would not, it will be like ஒரு ரஷ்யன் ரூபிள் மாதிரி அங்கே மட்டும்தான் வேலிட் அப்படின்ற ஒரு கரன்சியாக போய்டுறதுக்கு நிறைய ஒரு டேஞ்சர் கிரியேட் ஆகிடுறது. Because you don't demand delivery at all. You are okay with anything. So you have to demand, we want demanding audiences to improve the delivery aspect. A musician or a human being is can be measured by a formula that I call the CID formula. Any human being can be judged by that one. Content, intent, delivery. நிறைய பேருக்கு கான்டென்ட் இருக்கும், டெலிவரி இருக்காது. சில பேருக்கு வந்து டெலிவரி இருக்கும் ஆனால் கான்டென்ட் ரொம்ப போராக இருக்கும். அப்படியே ஒரு எம்டி பாக்ஸை சூப்பராக பேக்கேஜ் பண்ணி ஒரு கமல்ஹாசன் மூவி மாதிரி எடுத்து கொடுத்துருவா. ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி இருக்கும். சில பேருக்கு ரெண்டும் இருக்கலாம், ஆனால் இன்டென்ட் மே நாட் பி ஆல்வேஸ் டு பிரிங் த பெஸ்ட் ஆஃப் வேல்யூ ஆஃப் மியூசிக். அப்படி so many things are there. ஸோ இந்த மூணும் ரொம்ப இம்பார்ட்டன்ட் ஃபார் அ குட் கான்செப்ட் டு சக்சீட், ஃபார் அ குட் கான்செப்ட். அதில் வந்து யூ ஹேவ் டு பி டிமாண்டிங் ஆடியன்சஸ். இப்போ மைக்கெல்லாம் சரியா இல்லைனா இதுனா என்னுடைய கான்செப்டில் யூ வுட் ஹவ் சீன் மீ டூயிங் திஸ் ஃபார் ஆல்மோஸ்ட் 25-30 years. எப்போவுமே ஃபஸ்ட் சாங் முடிஞ்சு அதில் இமிடியட்லி ஆஸ்க் எவ்ரி ஒன் ஆஃப் யூ சரியாக இருக்கா வால்யூம். யூ வுட் ஹவ் சீன் மீ டூயிங் தட் ஈவன் எஸ்டர்டே. எல்லாம் சரியாக இருக்கா, எல்லா இன்ஸ்ட்ருமெண்ட்ஸும் பேலன்ஸ்டாக இருக்கான்னு. என்ன we will never know on the stage because many times a monitor will not be what it is outside. So எங்களுக்கு வந்து we may need more volume for us to play more accurately or hear ourselves better. So but உங்களுக்கு அது ரிஃப்ளெக்ட் ஆச்சுன்னா you have to speak up. Please, yeah, who has the mic? Okay, we'll come back to you. Yeah. Let you finish it and then we can come back.
Check. Okay. I'm glad you talked about the grammar, and we come from a culture which has Vedas which elaborate on details of rituals, and we have Panini, we have Dulkapyam, and all this, and Nati Shastra, of course, with details of exactly how. Now, what is stopping practicing musicians or the academy or anybody or you from?
Can you speak into the mic?
Oh, sorry, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
better.
what is stopping the academy or somebody or the practicing musicians or you from coming up with a detailed repository now with the technology that's available of exactly how and the variations? I think it's the secrecy that's killing the music. Why don't we have that repository and make it, open source on, Wikipedia or something, so that we don't have these questions?
No. Actually, see.
Given the number of doubts that
No. Very, very good point. Let me answer that. Actually, if some of you might have already been doing this, if you go to acharyanet.com, lot of these things have been codifying and communicating over the last few years. Including the raga details, raga lakshanam for many different things, model alapanas, model swarams, the compositional repertoire, everything I've been doing in different ways. But it's a huge project, it's not an overnight one. So probably I would have done about 200-300 things by now. And there are other musicians like Tanjavur Shankaraya, Trichy Shankaran sir and others who have contributed to Acharyanet base. So just go to acharyanet.com. It's not acharya.net or something, but this is only the beginning of it. Yeah, exactly. We have been doing those kind of things too. If you actually go see the site, you will see a lot of individual ragas which are discussed also. But this is never-ending subject because of the fact that ragas have evolved so many centuries, and they are also style-specific, region-specific. You will not see some phrases. Now, if you see Tyagaraja's handling of Shri versus Dikshita's handling of Shri or Shama Shastri's handling of Shri, Tyagaraja chose to not use some phrasings. Padani Bama Rega Reza will not be found in Tyagaraja's phrasings. Sani Bama Rega Reza. So all this will be mentioned in these kind of sessions that we do.
Yeah. Yes. All these variations are being discussed even in this kind of lessons and all that. But the fact is, despite all that, there are so many other stylistic things which still keep getting, so it is the Pata Antram. The difference is what is, the term Pada Antram actually means the differences in versions. It is Patathala Antaram. So, there are so many styles of musicians, so many different kinds of things where you have distinctive phrasings even now. So, one single artist codifying this will be okay for that school and some of the others to follow that. But there may be other schools which may have their own view on these things. So then if you have 10 different codifications, then you are back to the confusion only. Because which are you going to then eventually follow? We are doing that though. So you can be happy about it. Check out that website, acharyanet.com. Anybody else? Oh, we are 9:45. Okay, last question I'll take.
Last question.
இப்போ இந்த ராகமாலிகா பாடும்போது நான் அலைட் ராகாஸ் பெரும்பாலும் யூஸ் பண்ணுறோம். சம்டைம்ஸ் வி ஆல்சோ யூஸ் ரஞ்சனி மாலா கைண்ட் ஆஃப் ராகாஸ். பட் க்ளோஸ்லி அலைட் ராகாஸ் வச்சு அட்லீஸ்ட் ஃபார் அகடமிக் பர்பஸ் இஸ் இட் பாசிபிள் டு ஹேவ் ராகமாலிகா ஃபார் எக்ஸாம்பிள் பைரவி அண்ட் மாஞ்சி ஆர் தேவகாந்தரி அண்ட் ஆரம்பி அண்ட் ஸ்டில் ஷோ தி டிஃபரன்சியேஷன்? இஸ் இட் பாசிபிள்?
அது கொஞ்சம் சேலஞ்சிங். ஏன்னா நிறைய தடவை நம்ம பைரவி அண்ட் மாஞ்சி நம்ம தனித்தனியாக 2-3 கச்சேரி பாடிச்சே, இது பைரவியா, இவர் இன்னைக்கு மாஞ்சி பாடினாரா, இல்லை பைரவி பாடினாரா, இல்லை மாஞ்சி பைரவி பாடினாரா அப்படின்னு. ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி கன்ஃபியூஷன் வர்றதுக்கு சான்ஸ் இருக்குது. ஸோ த ராகமாலிகா won't work with that kind of thing. But Navaraga Malika Varnam of Patnam Subramaniar, some of the other classical compositions, you will see him using, Shankarabharanam followed by Kalyani, then followed by Begada, then followed by Kambodhi, followed by Yadukula Kambodhi, and then Bilakari, Mohanam. So, Bilakari, the Dikshita Chaturdacha Raga Malika, in the Mari, some compositions, they have used very closely allied ragas within the same Raga Malika. Edu? ஆமாம், ஐயங்கார்வாள் எப்போவுமே ஆலைட் ராகாஸை பாடுவார். அவர் ஒரே கச்சேரியில் நீங்கள் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா தோடி பராளி, பந்துவராளி, சிவபந்துவராளி 3 இருக்கும். ஹரிகாம்போதி, கல்யாணி, தோடி, காம்போதி இதெல்லாமே இருக்கும். ஸோ நிறைய கச்சேரி அப்படி பாடியிருக்கா. பெரியவா அப்படிலாம் சிலதெல்லாம் பாடியிருக்கா. பட் அது நம்ம அந்த டிஸ்டிங்ஷனை நம்ம கிளாஸிஃபை பண்ணி நம்ம பாடுறதுக்கு, பட் டிப்பிக்கலி குட் ராகமாலிகா இஸ் பேஸ்ட் மோர் ஆன் த கான்ட்ராஸ்ட். பிகாஸ் there are many ragas which are allied in only name, but they are still, for Ranjani Mala நீங்கள் பார்த்தீங்கன்னா even only the Ranjani suffix is the thing over there. Otherwise the ragas are pretty distinctive. So அந்த மாதிரி there are a lot of instances. There are certain other ragas which are pretty closely allied, not by name but actually by mood, as I mentioned, like by Bhairavi, this in Ghanta and Ahiri. But similarly, if you say Malavi, Chenju Kambodhi and all that, the mood will be the same almost, the kind of assertive kind of thing. So this is a huge subject. I just covered only the tip of the iceberg today, and it's been a pleasure exchanging views with all of you. Thank you.